You know, in motorsport, you have drivers who break records, and then you have legends. But there's only one person who has totally rewritten the rulebook for what's possible in Formula One, and that, of course, is Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, let's start with the big one. 7. That's how many World Drivers' Championships he's got. That puts him right alongside the legendary Michael Schumacher for the most ever. I mean, that's a record most of us thought would never be touched.
And then you've got this number, 105. That's how many races he's won. It's the all-time record in Formula One. Just think about that. Every single win after he passed the old record of 91, well, he was literally driving into uncharted territory.
And believe me, the records don't stop there. 104. That's how many pole positions he's racked up. Now, if you're kind of new to F1, that means he was the single fastest driver on a Saturday 104 times, earning that top spot on the grid for the race. It's just another all-time record that speaks volumes about his raw, unbelievable speed.
So when you add all that up, what do you get? You get the most decorated driver in the entire history of Formula One. But you know, those numbers, they're just the end result. The story of how he got there, that's where things get really fascinating.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it's not on some glamorous Grand Prix circuit. Nope. It all started on the humble karting tracks of Stevenage, England.
Yeah, this is it. This is where the journey kicks off. His dad, Anthony, got him his very first go-kart when he was only 6 years old, and the dedication from his family was just immense. I mean, his dad was working up to 4 jobs at a time, doing everything from washing dishes to selling double glazing, all to fund his son's dream.
And right from the get-go, he was up against some serious challenges. He was the only black kid racing at his club, and he had to deal with racist abuse. But he didn't let it break him. He took all of that and channeled it right into his driving, just dominating on the track. He started winning championships, and get this, at just 10 years old, he became the youngest driver ever to win the British Cadet Karting Championship.
And this right here tells you everything you need to know about his self-belief. Can you imagine being 10 years old? You've just won a major title, and you walk straight up to the boss of the McLaren F1 team, Ron Dennis, and say that? The confidence, the audacity. It's just incredible.
So Ron Dennis, he was definitely impressed. He wrote that little note in Hamilton's autograph book. But here's the kicker. He didn't wait 9 years. Nope. Just 3 years later, in 1998, Dennis picks up the phone, calls a 13-year-old Lewis Hamilton, and signs him to the McLaren Young Driver Program. That promise? It just became a very real plan. And it wasn't just team bosses who noticed. Even the greats saw it. Back in 2001, the undisputed king of F1 himself, Michael Schumacher, actually raced against a 16-year-old Hamilton in a special karting event. And afterwards, Schumacher said this, "I mean, when the best driver on the planet recognizes your talent, you've got to know you're doing something right." So all of this early promise, it was all building up to one of the most explosive, most incredible entries into Formula One that we have ever seen, his debut with McLaren. So in 2007, he made history before the lights even went out just by being on the grid. He was the first ever black driver in Formula One. And who was his teammate? Oh, just the reigning 2-time world champion, Fernando Alonso. But Lewis wasn't there to just fill a seat. He was there to win, period. And that rookie season, wow, it was nothing short of sensational. He kicked things off with 9 podium finishes in a row. He won 4 races and was leading the championship for most of the season. In the end, he missed out on the title by one single agonizing point. But the message to the entire world was crystal clear. A superstar had arrived.
But then came 2008, and one of the most dramatic, heart-stopping finishes in the history of, well, any sport really. At the final race in Brazil, Ferrari's Felipe Massa crosses the finish line, and the Ferrari garage just erupts. They think he's the champion. But wait, on the very last corner of the very last lap, Hamilton pulls off a crucial overtake, clinches 5th place, and wins the title by a single point. And just like that, he became the youngest F1 world champion at the time. Okay, so after a few years at McLaren that weren't quite as successful, Hamilton made a move that a lot of people in the paddock thought was a massive gamble, a huge risk. In 2013, he decided to join Mercedes, a team that really hadn't seen much success lately. Well, that decision, it would kickstart the single most dominant phase of his entire career.
At Mercedes, he teamed up again with his old childhood karting rival Nico Rosberg. And as fate would have it, in 2014, a whole new set of engine rules came in, the turbo hybrid era.
And Mercedes, well, they just nailed it. They were basically unbeatable. This set the stage for an incredibly intense, sometimes bitter battle between the two teammates, a rivalry the media quickly nicknamed the Silver War. You know, his whole career has really been defined by these epic, titanic battles. First, it was that 3-year war with Rosberg, where Lewis came out on top with 2 titles. Then, after Rosberg's shock retirement, he went head-to-head for years with Ferrari's own 4-time champ Sebastian Vettel. That was a rivalry they called the Fight for 5. And this timeline just lays it all out, the sheer relentless dominance that followed. Look, this was never just about having the fastest car. It was about Hamilton's incredible consistency, his ability to perform under crushing pressure, week in and week out. We're talking 6 world titles in just 7 years, each one solidifying his legacy. Until finally, in 2020, he did it. He matched Michael Schumacher's record of 7 world championships, a number we all thought was untouchable. But Lewis Hamilton's story is so much bigger than just what he's done on the racetrack. His influence, his impact, it goes way, way beyond the pit lane. So that's the big question, right? What do you do after you've broken basically every record there is? What happens when you've achieved statistical immortality? Well, for Hamilton, the answer was simple. You use that massive platform to make a real difference. He completely transformed what it means to be a Formula One driver. He became this incredibly powerful voice for racial justice, for pushing for more diversity in motorsport. His high-profile life brought tons of new fans to the sport. He became a global icon, landing on Time's 100 list, and even receiving a knighthood for everything he's done for motorsport. I mean, Sir Lewis Hamilton. It's amazing.
And then, just when we all thought the final chapters of his career were already written, he drops one of the biggest bombshells, one of the most shocking transfers the sport has ever seen. After this legendary, historic run with Mercedes, he decided it was time for one more challenge.
And that challenge? It was a childhood dream. Starting in 2025, Lewis Hamilton will be wearing the iconic red race suit of Scuderia Ferrari, the most historic, the most famous team in all of Formula One. It was a move that sent absolute shockwaves through the entire sporting world.
And so, that leaves us with this one final, tantalizing question. This last chapter of his story, it's still unwritten. Can the greatest driver of his generation cap off an already legendary career by doing the one thing Ferrari dreams of, bringing a world championship back to Maranello? All we can do is watch.